It's Ashley from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and today I'm going to be showing you how to plan a professional looking frozen party. Now last year I took my daughter to Chuck E. Cheese and it was fantastic because I didn't have to clean a thing, but we know 2020 is a different year. So step one, we are going to start with the scheduling of the day because many of our parties are now having to be outdoors and it's pretty cold where I live, so I really wanted to keep this schedule moving. The first thing I do is usually schedule in a 30-minute leeway period where people can arrive and mingle. People are late, people have kids, it happens. I really want to get the energy of the party going right off the bat, so we had Elsa arrive. Now, you could plan some other form of entertainment that suits your party instead. I will say though that if this entertainment is available to you, I highly recommend them. I like to schedule the cake cutting early on. This is so that guests who maybe have to leave or go home for nap scheduling or whatever don't feel like they have to stay because they've seen the pertinent parts, which is usually the cake cutting. I did offer my guests and parents a boxed lunch. Normally I just put it out, but during these times I figured a boxed lunch was the most convenient. I like to end off all of my parties with a piñata. It's just super fun, and I find that excitement really wraps things up nicely. Step number two, and some may say that this is even more important than the schedule itself, and that is budgeting. I just like to come up with my schedule first, so then that way I know what I'm even wanting to spend on and how much I'm willing to spend on those things. Now, I will admit that going into this particular party, I didn't set a budget for myself, but I did want to be cost effective. For my dessert table, I only spent about $100 on it. Now this includes the cake, the macarons, the cookies, the cupcakes, and all of the decor that went along with the dessert table. But keep in mind that I did make the cake myself, I did make all of the cookies, and I also made the macarons. So perhaps your budget may look a little bit different and you may have to put a little bit more into that budget. I tend to throw a lot of over-the-top parties and I like dessert tables, so I already invested in a lot of the things you see here, like the white pedestals and all of those cake stands and even a portion of the cake I already owned. I spent around $150 for the entertainment, which was about an hour long. And like I mentioned before, totally well worth it. I will link them down below. Not affiliated with them, just super happy with their services. For the piñata, this is again something that's a little bit more movable in budget if you don't want to spend that much. I spent $35 because I didn't want to sit there making the piñata. I often utilize the piñata candy as part of the goodie bags to save money and to save time, and I also added in an additional bow or cup to the goodie bag. The grand total for the food, the entertainment, the decor was $300 Canadian. So once you've determined your budget or a budget maximum that you want to stay within, it's time to plan the dessert table. Now for most people, this is where most of your money is going to go, especially if you're not making all of your stuff on your own. Now I made all of the desserts that the guests were actually going to be eating from scratch, but you totally don't have to do that and you can still end up with a professional looking frozen party. My motto is do whatever works for you and what is going to make you happiest and the least stressed. For myself, I already had this old cake lying around that was from my mom's 60th birthday, so I decided I wasn't going to waste any time trying to dismantle it, but instead I would just add to it and make it frozen. Honestly, more often than not, your local bakery probably has a lot of faux cakes just lying around that they haven't gotten around to throwing out yet. So if you are crafty or you're good at baking and decorating, then reaching out to a local bakery would probably be a great way of cutting down some of that cost. One of the things that I always do, A, to cut down on costs, and B, just to make sure that there's not too much work for me, is I always make the whole cake fake, and then I do one real tier on top so that we still have a cake to cut. Chances are no one's actually going to eat a lot of the cake anyway, so that's why I say might as well just have one small tier for the birthday person. Now, like I mentioned, I always make my cookies from scratch, but you could honestly take something like an Oreo, for example, and dip it into white chocolate, and then you could airbrush it or something like that to make it frozen if you don't really want to go and spend the money on getting custom cookies. It's still going to make your table look really, really beautiful and cohesive. But this is where the planning of your dessert table is incredibly important. You need to decide how much you're going to make, how much you're going to purchase, if anything at all, and you also need to decide how you're going to schedule your time in order to pull off this dessert table. Inspiration boards and inspiration pictures should all be picked out at least a month in advance. This gives you the opportunity to perhaps order from a bakery if you do want to get custom things, and it also gives you time to gather all the supplies that you might need. Now, if you are going to be ordering from a bakery, I do suggest that to guarantee your spot, you do it at least 3 weeks in advance. Most bakeries can accommodate a 3-week turnaround time. If you are going to be DIYing a lot of things, then making sure that you have everything 3 weeks in advance is really going to help in case there are certain projects that are going to take you a little bit longer. 3 weeks is also enough turnaround time for online services to get you the products that you need, for the most part. If you haven't thrown a lot of parties, then you do want to make sure that you get everything ready starting 2 weeks before the party. Even for things like sugar cookies, you can get those ready 2 weeks in advance or 1 week in advance. It's probably going to take you a little while to actually make the sugar cookies, and you can freeze them. So again, when you're planning your party table, you want to make sure that you think about what items can be frozen, what things can be made in advance. The more things that you can make in advance, the less stress it's going to be for you on the day of the party. I've given tips before on how to set up the perfect dessert table, so you can go ahead and check out that video in the right-hand corner if you'd like to hear more about that. On the day of the party, really all you should be doing is icing the cupcakes if you want the cupcakes to be nice and fresh and have that beautiful peak of frosting, and then you should just be setting up. If your setup is quite elaborate, for example, maybe you have a balloon arch in mind, then you do want to make sure that you always add an hour on to however long you think it's going to take you. So if you think it's going to take you 2 hours, for example, to set up a balloon arch, add another hour on to that. For some reason, on the day of the party, time just seems to speed up. Here are some final tips to throwing a frozen party during 2020 that looks professional. We had our party outdoors, like I mentioned. We did set up a tent in case there was rain. And in terms of making it actually look like a professional dessert table, you want to make sure that you have things all really compacted together and try to stick to a color palette. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading daily, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys.